Thanks. All right, thanks for inviting me. My name is Joe Morelock. I'm currently the Director of Technology, Innovation, Secondary Education, Plumbing, Steam Fitting, Pipes, all the rest of the stuff that goes along with being in a small district. Several years ago, how am I doing? Oh, I've already clicked ahead. Perfect. That's my kid, by the way. Isn't that nice? So several years ago, actually starting out in 2007, we initiated what was one of the first iPod Touch one-to-one classrooms. And we thought that that was kind of a magical moment. And we just tried some things, and we found some joy in kids, and we found some joy in teachers. We found that that was really something that would entice them to be excited in school. And over time, those numbers grew, and they grew rather exponentially, more than we thought would happen. Now, along with that, we also had teachers engaging in an innovation grant process, and I'll explain this in just a minute. But the numbers of the teachers who became involved and wanted to get in on the game grew exponentially. And so we ended up in a place where you'll walk into classrooms and it'll look like this, somewhere pre-K through 12th grade. And you'll see kids interacting with each other, working on practicing their letters like you can see up here, at all grade levels. And the great thing about my job is that I get to walk into classrooms and have no idea what I'm going to see. Now, in some classrooms, you might not say that. I know I'm going to walk in, I'm going to see kids sitting in the same rows, facing the same direction, doing the same task, all at the same time, and ending at the same place. But as the innovative processes have begun to grow within the classrooms in Canby, I get to walk in and have no idea what I'm going to see. So occasionally we do tours and we have people come and they ask, well, what should we look for today? I said, look for kids learning, because the rest of it, I have no idea what it's going to be. But before we get to this part, and this is often when people say, well, just tell me how you did it, and we want to do that tomorrow, and we want to buy thousands of things and put them in the hands of kids and change the world. And we try to remind them that it's slower than that. Education hasn't changed that much, and that this revolution really is going to be subtle, and you'll be able to pick up on the cues as it comes along. Let me show you how. First, let's talk about a few issues. Schools have been kind of the way they are for a long time since the Industrial Revolution, and we have some things that sort of make it difficult for us to transform. First of all, Mr. Groening made sure that we knew that school is hell, occasionally. Kids tapping the pencil, kid coming in late, pulling the fire drill, teachers thinking about maybe a different career, burping, hiccuping, playing with some kid's hair, sticking the gum under the desk, all those things that happen in classrooms across the country. So we know that school is very challenging and that teachers are working exceptionally hard to try to make a difference every day when their classroom might look like this. We also have lots and lots of experts telling us all the ways that we should do this. This is the way you should fix school. This is the way you should fix school. We should do this. We should do that. You should learn how to manage change better. You should work with more nonfiction texts. You should work on a continuous improvement cycle, and this will all make it better. We're going to solve the education problems with one swell foop. Right? The other issue we have is that we have teachers that grew up in a time where this is how they did research. I'm one of those. Many of you probably remember these card catalogs. For the young folks in the crowd, this is a card catalog. This is how we used to pre-Google find information. And it was fun, and it was exciting, and you had the smartest person in the world was the woman who worked at the reference desk. The reference librarian was maybe the smartest human being on the planet, because she could help you find, whether it was on microfiche, or it was in an old magazine, or it was a book on a shelf somewhere, what you were looking for. But many of our teachers grew up in a time where this is how they did research. And this was their first portable computer. Right? This was their first portable computer. Now we also have teachers for whom this was their first portable computer. Right? Even had a handle built in. This was great. So we've got some tension between people who learned to research using cards and portable computers that were quite heavy, and teachers also who grew up in a time where in high school, this is where they got to see their first portable computers. This is when they started to use them. Another issue we have is we've not spent money on the things that aren't very sexy. So I won't tell you which school district this is, but this is a local Northwest School District's data closet. This is their interweb. This is what connects them to the world. This is a bad thing, but it's really hard to explain to taxpayers, hey, by the way, we're going to spend $1.2 million to fix these rooms so we can make sure that kids get online so they can do their tests. So they can learn about the world and interact with information and things like that. But that's what some of our network closets look like, and we've not spent the time or the money to improve those over time when we really needed to. You know, another thing is that sometimes the kid's best Wi-Fi signal comes from a truck stop. Right? They might have the best signal they can get out there. They can get it at the rest area along the highway. They can get it at McDonald's. They can get it at Starbucks. But they can't get it in school because either we haven't put them in or we locked them down so tightly that nobody even at Fort Knox could break through it to get on to check their Facebook page. We've also been lying to children for a long time. And we've told them that this is their alphabet, and you will learn this alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. This is the way it works. When really, they're going to interact with an alphabet that looks like this. Anybody know the number of characters in each row? Don't count. Don't cheat. You guys are cheating, right? I'll let you look that up later. So this is one of those things where now we have to remember, by the way, the alphabet looks different. This is how they interact with the world at all ages, right? The other thing we have is people telling us we've got to get stiffer about these things. It's got to be harder. It's got to be more difficult. We've got to make sure that every kid achieves at a super high level. The problem is that many of us look at this word and we think of another word. I'll say it again for those of you who missed it, and there we go. Okay. That rigor mortis, that's difficult. And then as we get closer to trying to buy some technologies or some things or some innovative practices or what we're going to do, we don't know what's coming next, and we always want to know. So what's next? We get that question a lot when people come for a tour. What's happening next in technology? I don't know. I'm not making it. Right? And we don't even know what's going to come next. So people get stuck. Do we buy this? Do we buy that? And pretty soon teachers are stuck in the crosshairs between, are they coming or are they going? Are they fixing or are they doing? Right? What are we trying to do with kids and technology? What are we trying to do with our classrooms? What are we trying to do? How are we trying to make this revolution in education? All right, so I'm going to go through a couple of ways that I think that we've tried to work on it. And one of them is about building an innovative culture, and a culture in which that innovation is okay. First of all, for some definition, if you think about innovation as a way to think about new ways to solve problems that either exist or new ways to solve problems that you didn't know existed until just recently. Okay, so different kinds of ways. Let me give you an example. In 1954, I think it was, Life magazine published a report saying that kids' scores were going down in reading, and that was because reading was boring. Reading was boring. Skip can run. Run, skip, run with Billy. Come, Skip, come and play. Billy can run. I think reading might have been boring. So this, the person who eventually became the CEO of Houghton Mifflin challenged an author friend of his. He took 348 of the most common words, pared it down to 250, and said to his author friend, can you make a book that kids cannot put down? Now the author failed because he only got 238 of the 250 words, but his books were relatively successful. In fact, they went on to develop readers because they couldn't put it down. And parents, of course, were punished with doing the cat in the hat again and again and again and again, and green eggs and ham, and all the places you'll go. But you think about that, that was an innovation in reading materials, in making something interesting for children to read. Because the more they read of interest, the better they get at reading. It's a magical thing, a lot of research into this. You read more, you get better at reading. Okay? If reading sucks because it's boring, then you don't really read it, then you don't get better at reading. So that was one of the innovations. So we took that as one of our cues to think about how we might do this in our classrooms. Now, because I was the director of technology, I was kind of focused on thinking about how we were going to develop some innovation in classrooms. Now, I said before that teachers are hardworking people, and they want the best for their kids, but they also want to make sure stuff works. That's what turns them on to do it again and again and again. They try something, they see results, and they do it again, and they see somebody else doing it. And so we thought that we could probably make that happen in classrooms. Because teachers sometimes just want to do something that hasn't been done before or try something. They dream about, what if I could do this? What if I could do that? So we set aside a small amount of money to try to fund innovation. So we set aside this $2,000 for teachers to apply for technology. We did not give them a list. It can be anything you want. Anything. It was kind of weird, like, oh, you mean anything? No, there's no list, really. So we had things like Wii systems with Dance Dance Revolution for middle school PE. The stinkiest gym you've ever been in your life, right? Projectors and kids dancing and craziness, and GPS units and iPods for reading, and all kinds of things that were coming up. And they were only required to come to a class that a university professor would teach over 5 nights, and then they had to present their data at the end of the school year. Okay, so what happened was teachers did things that we could never have imagined. Now, in my previous part of this education career, I'm still recovering from being a high school Spanish teacher. So I taught Spanish for many years, and I was a librarian for a little while. And so I could not have imagined what you can do in 3rd grade for math, or reading, or social studies. So what we found out is that secretly this had become our R&D budget. How many of you have an R&D budget in your line item? How many of you think you might get slaughtered by the public saying, oh, we've got R&D at school, it must have enough money to do that? But they ask us to do things differently than we've done them before. How do you do things differently? You should do things differently. Well, how do we do that? We have to test it. How do you test it? We try something different we've never done before. They call that research and development. There's not a private company in the world that doesn't do some kind of R&D. Yet, in the public schools, we're expected not to. What we didn't want to do, however, was drive innovation. Because we hear that a lot. You've got to drive innovation into your organization. Drive it in. Make those people do it. That doesn't really work. We didn't find that. We wanted to entice it. We wanted to invite it in slowly. Come in, try some things, right? And the questions we get are often say, well, how did you do it? Tell us exactly your step-by-step direction. What did you buy? How did you make people do it? Did you get into the class? And they want a list of things. I'm not going to give you a list, but I will give you a couple of ideas since you've driven so far and have joined us today and are having some popcorn. I'll give you a couple of the core concepts of the things that really made it work for us. The first thing we had to do was get over everything looking the same. And we had to embrace the bizarre, right? Think about if you go into an open-air market and you see things that you've never expected to see in colors you didn't expect, and sometimes it looks like a little bit of a mess and you got stuff being sold over here and stuff being sold over there and stuff being sold over there. But if you start to spend a little more time at that open-air market, you will notice that eventually things begin to look a little more the same than different. Because somebody will discover something that works. And that vendor in stall number 2 will look at vendor in stall number 3 and go, huh, they're selling a lot of things. I'm going to sell some of those things, but I'm going to make it better. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. And pretty soon, that vendor's selling now better in stall number 2 than stall number 3. Stall number 3 goes, oh, well, I like that idea. I'm going to take that idea, and I'm going to make it better. And then stall number 6, and then stall number 8, and then stall number 12. You can see that right here in the Portland Saturday market. It was discovered by somebody that the yellow background, red letters, and bad punctuation will sell more food. Apostrophes for all you grammarian nerds. But think about that. So if you can imagine that bazaar as a place where ideas are freely shared and things happen and the good ideas float to the top, the bad ideas disappear. And that's the same way that these innovation practices happen in schools. But we as education leaders have to do a few things. We have to trust our people. You know, parents send their most valuable resource, the best thing they've ever made in the whole world, to us every day, and they walk in the front door. And they expect only 2 things, that their child will be safe and their child will learn. Only 2 things. So we trust a group of adults who we hire to do that great work with these people's most precious resource. The weird thing is we won't trust them with some money to buy some tech to do some cool things in classrooms. There's a strange disconnect there. And so we learned that by trusting our people, that they would then work together and they would discover things that would work out and they would share it with somebody else and share it with somebody else. And pretty soon it was okay to share that something didn't work. The hardest thing to do is to get people to talk about what didn't work. You know, we would find out in April that their project hasn't worked because the tech didn't work for them starting in August. Like, maybe you should have told us beforehand. That took a long time to build that trust, right? And to build that trust, some of you may have to plant an entire olive tree so you can pull off all the branches, because you're going to hand them over a lot. People ask, well, how do you develop the trust? You have to be the one that extends the branch over and over and over and over and over again. Eventually, somebody takes it. And then one of their colleagues says, oh, well, it's okay. Maybe I'll take that. And maybe we'll work on it. And we developed this process where we could tell people, failure's okay. It's going to happen. You are going to mess this up badly. And it's going to come out glorious at the end. And you will have learned things. You know, one of the things we do in schools, we don't let people actually go through the process of failure and then rebirth and renewal. I mean, think about it. If we had let this gentleman, if he had stopped at 38 failures, all of your doors would be rusted shut. You'd never be able to get that hinge to stop squeaking. He made 39 spectacular failures. Wonderful, beautiful, horrible things that didn't work. But the 40th time he got it right, and he called it water displacement formula number 40. affectionately known as WD-40, the most wonderful liquid known to mankind. But the important part of that lesson is how many times in your schools do you see teachers failing 40 times before they get it right? How many times do we let that third grader make that mistake? Once, twice, and then we're done. I'll just give you the answer. Here you go. But maybe that process about learning about recovery from failure might be really where the learning happens. I learned about this in my 7th grade math class. My teacher, Armand Lake, at Briggs Middle School, said we're going to learn math in three ways. We're going to guess, we're going to check, and we're going to refine. I didn't know that he was teaching me the iterative process because, of course, I was 11. I didn't know anything about the world. But he was actually trying to tell us that you're going to try something, and then you're going to check and see if it worked, and then you're going to refine your process. And you're going to do it over and over and over and over again. And that's what we've tried to do with teachers. They didn't know when they used iPods, like in Jackie Fitch's class, she didn't know that by having kids read their rough drafts that they'd written by hand on paper into the iPod and then listening back was going to improve their ability to use punctuation. That wasn't the goal. It just happened. Right? And we've been trying to work with teachers to have them recognize those moments. We didn't know, and neither did this teacher, when she used iPads with first graders, what would happen. In fact, her big research question was, what would happen? Because she didn't even know what to look for. And that was okay, and we encouraged that. So what happens? I don't know what happens. Let's try to see what happens. Okay, that's what happened. And then she would report her results. And then we had teachers begin to shift the way they worked. And this was really where the secret sauce, the magic started to happen. Because they stopped asking some of those questions that were very specific about pulling out data, and they would do things like ask the children what they thought. Now, that doesn't sound like a big deal for those of you who may not be in a classroom all the time, but for the teacher to give over that power to kids and ask their part of the process to co-develop something that we're going to use in class is a big move, especially for those of us old folks who've been teaching since the beginning of time, and we had a certain way we're going to do this, and we're going to organize it, and we're all doing it this way. This teacher, he mixed together, if you can imagine, upper elementary school kids, Jell-O, and iPods. What could go wrong, right? But what he also did, because he was working on trying to have the kids learn about earthquakes, and what he did is he asked the kids, so what do you think? This is our project. This is what we're going to do. And his big move was to ask them what they thought. And they said, you know, maybe we should put plastic bags around the iPods. Good idea. Put those down. Another kid said, maybe we should tape them down to the table. And another kid said, maybe we should shake the table this way and this way. Then we can see both kinds of earthquakes. And so as this lesson co-developed between the teacher and the students, they built a new level of trust and a new level of discovery. And it just took that one moment where the teacher had to make a decision. Let me ask what the kids think. You know, we had other places where we'd send devices that people told us not to because it was our school for the adjudicated youth. You know, one step in jail, one step out, and so don't send devices out there, they never come back, which was not true. The teacher asked the kids, after she took some data about how they read, she asked them what they thought. What do you think about using this stuff to learn to read? And kids would tell you. Say, you know, I like using an iPod. I don't feel so dumb. That's a piece of data that's core. You've now turned on a reader. That's a huge move, and from non-reader to reader. Another group of teachers asked some kids, said, look, we're going to do this project, and we got this, and we got this, and this, and one of the kids said, maybe we could do something else. And so this child was trying to convince his teachers to download and use an app in class. 5th grade kid. And the teachers, they were co-teaching this lesson, said, well, okay, you make a presentation and deliver it to both of the teachers and the principal, and you try to convince us that this is the right tool for you to learn these things. So he did. He put together a keynote presentation, had some music, had some video. He'd put all these things together, and he made a convincing argument. He made his first sales pitch. He's 10. He's making his first sales pitch. And he had all these things, and then he created some rules. And all he wanted to do was use Minecraft because they were studying ancient cultures. And he said, this is the best way for us to build replicate temples that we could actually show. And they had to work in teams. And they learned how to create little servers on their own. And pretty soon they're sharing them over there, and they're overwhelming our wireless network. And it's wonderful because they were doing something that they had investment in. And that teacher has no idea what her original project was. Her project ended up being what happens when you let kids make decisions in school. That became the project. And they had some great stuff, right? So if we think about each one of these projects individually, they're pretty cool. But when you put them all together, it's like a huge brainstorming session that's happening ongoing all the time in the classrooms you have right now. And that's, I think, what's exciting for us is to see that happening. And we discovered over time that we were never really constrained to anything. People say, well, we're sort of painted in a corner. Walk across the paint. You're not stuck there, right? There is no box. We're thinking outside the box. There's no box. So get over that. And that's kind of what we've been able to discover this over time. Okay. So a couple of final thoughts. First of all, in education, we have two things that I will no longer allow people to say in my presence, or I'll jump across the table and choke them out. Not really. I'm actually a relatively nice guy. But two things that really bug me about when people say, well, we can't do this because. We can't do this because we don't have enough time, we don't have enough money. Actually, we've never had enough money. I've been in education 21 years, and 20 of those 21 years we have made cuts, in many years significant. As an example, over the last 5 years, our high school went from 92 teachers to 61. That's a lot of people out the door. So we've never really had enough money. But we also don't have enough time to wait, right? Because really, for all you adults in the room, and I think it's all adults in here now, it's not about you. It's about them. You're only a fourth grader once. Only once. And I think that's the difficulty when we start talking about what we've prioritized. Well, you know what? We got running water in most of our schools. I talked to a group in Alaska once, and they said, no, we're out in the islands. We don't have any running water. I said, okay. Everybody but you has running water. The rest of you have running water. But we've also prioritized textbooks and other things. We've bought stuff. We put roofs on our buildings. We paint the sidewalks. We do things that cost money. We prioritize certain things over another, right? And so are we going to start to prioritize things like technology, things like that might entice kids to be engaged in school? And the difficulty is that people say, well, it's got to do this, it's got to do this, it's got to do this, and it's going to change the world. You know, the blackboard was going to change, was going to be the revolution in education, and then it was going to be the whiteboard, and then it was going to be the interactive whiteboard, and then it was going to be the slate, and then it was going to be the interactive slate, and it would be this, and it would be that. None of those things are really going to be the thing that happens, that revolutionizes it. If you look at this picture, you guys recognize this? Some of you had this type in class, right? IBM Selectric 360, AAA space, SSS space, DDD space, FFF space. Yeah, that was punishing. Yes, that was fun. So that's what our lab looked like, right? And so at least we have made some gains in the 21st century, and we've changed the way we interact with technology with kids. Or maybe we haven't. Maybe it's exactly the same as we were before, right? And we have to try to get comfortable with a little bit of chaos washing over us. Do you know how exciting it is to walk into a classroom like this and one first grade kid showing another first grade kid how to properly scrub in the video to find the thing? And oh, look, here's the little numbers. He doesn't even know it's a time code. It doesn't matter. He's pointing at the numbers. He's scrubbing it in and out. And we've handed the curriculum over to the kids. Hey, it's your video now. It's not the one video up front that I'm going to control, push the button on the VCR, and sit down and wait for it to finish and then come back. I'm going to hand the video out to each one of you, and you're going to control it at your own speed. And you're going to figure out what's important to you. And if we let kids do that, and we let the kids interact with each other and help each other, and then they learn how to present and do other kinds of things, right? They learn how to create portfolios and save all of their work, and then recall them and show you what they said. Hey, this is what I did in October, and it's April, and the kid's 9, and working in a bilingual school, and has them in both languages on their device. And then we discover the kids find that maybe school has too much furniture. We'd like to work in different places, right? And different ways of thinking about it. And kids can be self-directed, right? Kids can be self-directed. They can also work in groups, and we have to show them how to do that. They naturally want to hang out together because we're gregarious as a race, right? The human race. But we also have to show them how to interact. And often we'll get stuck back in the way. We want to see all the results. I want to see kids reading better. I want to see kids better at math. And it's going to be because all this technology we have is going to make the world better. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's not. It's not the silver bullet. Right? Just because, I like this, just because it's new and improved doesn't mean it's any different. In fact, if you look closely, you'll notice there are fewer whole grains in this one than there are in the old one. Those of you detail-oriented people. By the way, it didn't get better, it just got worse. But it's new and improved, so I like it. But it's back to that core concept, again, that this revolution is going to be subtle. And you're going to see these things sneaking in over time if you let them. They'll be there, right? There'll be an internet-connected device next to the scissors and the markers and the glue and the minty fresh paste, which is why kids eat it. All those things together, you're going to see them. And you'll see them working together, and they'll be working on reading and writing. And we're going to give them a tool that allows them to look up the word and to speak the word if they don't know it, and to translate the word if they speak another language other than English for their assignment, right? We're also going to find out that kids are going to learn by any tool necessary. So we're not throwing out everything that we know how to do, but we're introducing tools that may enable that. So it may be a calculator, it might be a book, it might be an iPad, it might be a piece of paper. All those things that as adults we find okay to do. But not so much if you're a kid in school. You need to do it this way, because that's the way I learned. Okay? We might just find out that kids are going to show us things that we didn't even expect. These young ladies were trying to get ready, and they were going to have their papers taken because there was a tour of adults, and we were going to look at their stuff. And instead of that, one of these young ladies decided to take a picture of that and then record all of her work. A portfolio of the worksheet. Now, this is not how worksheets were originally imagined, but think about that. And not just a little bit. She also color-coded it all so she could remember exactly the steps she had taken. This was a portfolio of her learning of that one lesson, because she stood up and took a quick picture of it. And she reimagined how it might actually be used, right? And we're in these times where now we can connect kids with the world, whether it's across the hall, across the world, from their desk. You know, we spent hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars on rooms that we sort of use and didn't really use, and we called them distance learning, but now they can do it from their pocket on your network, if you don't have a network that lives like that. Right? And we've found that these technologies have finally arrived at the place where we've imagined the magic could be, and now we're there. And now we don't have enough time, enough money. That's not true. We might just find that some of these technologies are going to help a child who's never had a voice and give them one. Let them tell their own jokes. Right? So we have to think about all those things. And as the adults in the room, the final thing to remember is it's really not about you. That your work is to enable the future for the children in your charge, or the kids who are in your school, and that your work really is about opening up the doors in the world and allowing them to walk through in the way they will. Thanks.